So you start out with King's Pawn. Tell me what you know. What can black play here? And because I don't want to bog you down with repetitive information.
Yeah, I mean, I guess typically these three moves would be ones that I think I'm coming up against most frequently.
Okay, yeah, and that's absolutely right. So e4, e5, you're going to face a lot. I mean, probably more than 3 out of every 5 games.
Yep.
Sicilian, so c5, you're going to face because it's one of the most popular defenses. And, I tell folks below 2,000 not to even play Sicilian because the way Sicilian normally happens on a theoretical level is you have to memorize a ton of stuff. And I just say don't even do that. I like the King's Indian, so I really like that. And then yeah, you said Scandinavian, so this immediate thing, and I know you usually take.
I do. Yeah, usually the way yeah, and then typically play the knight out, and
Mhm.
then sometimes I will see this, or
Right. Yep.
sometimes I will see like this check, in which case I'll usually bring the bishop out.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Bishop, knight, get developed, and so on. I think for a good starting point, in terms of opening repertoire, which we'll start out with. Let's start out with e5. And rather than aggressive King's Gambit or Knight f3, my community is gonna know this because I talk about this opening a lot. But play Knight out this way first.
Mm. Well, in my preparation for our work together, I
Hmm.
did see one of your videos where I saw that you suggested this. This is
Okay.
the Vienna, is it?
Yes, and so the Vienna has a couple of different versions. The one I'm going to show you is I don't really focus on it actually so much in the video that I think you're talking about. Also, I'm
Mhm.
honored. That's
Oh yeah, yeah. So listen, I have questions about what's happening with the chess YouTube algorithm, which we'll get to. But you started just popping up 3 weeks ago for some reason. I don't know how or why, but I have some theories. But we'll deal with that maybe later.
sure. Well, that's amazing. I'm gonna make sure YouTube gets a nice donation so they keep doing it. So I like this move for a few reasons. The biggest reason is that you're gonna play this move anyway. I know that Ponziani happens. You play pawn here. And normally what you're going to do is delay the move knight f3, or just not play it at all. And what you'll do with the knight is either push this pawn in the future, or you're going to put the bishop this way and the knight this way.
Mhm.
The last participant in the tournament, I showed this to BoxBox, who's streams a lot of League of Legends. But there's a lot of venom in this system. So let's say I just play a developing move, something like knight c6.
Mhm.
What you can do here is go for a system where you play for the center, so something like bishop c4, and you can play the moves to just familiarize yourself with
Okay,
this.
yeah, that's good.
So bishop c4 is kind of like the traditional way of doing things, and again we're waiting with this knight. So let's say I play like knight f6,
Yep.
and now you prepare this move with pushing your d pawn, so up 1 square.
Mm.
Exactly. And your next idea is going to be, you want to go here, and then you want to play knight behind the pawn. So in a
Got it.
perfect world, well, let's say again you play this move. If I take it, I hope we're clear. You are going to recapture that.
Yeah, right. Okay. That was going to be my first
Mhm.
question.
Yeah, you don't need to delay it. It's not a gambit at all. It's actually now. What do you think is the benefit for white to make this trade? A few moves down the line, what's going to be the benefit?
I mean, I'm guessing maybe something related to having some influence in this direction earlier and prevent maybe making it more uncomfortable for black in some future moves.
So first of all, yes, your bishop is going to get developed, and you're going to have the two central bishops, which is excellent. You don't always get that. And the second benefit is going to be anytime a pawn is traded, and this is just generally moving forward as well, files open up, a lot of diagonals open up. So since you traded your f pawn, the f file is more open.
Yes.
And so when you put a rook here, hopefully with short castling, you're going to have an active rook, because normally there's a pawn here.
Sure.
And so the rook is stuck behind the pawn. So long term, you're trying to create something on that side of the board. Or you will castle this way.
Yep.
And
Otherwise, so when you say "or I will do that," depending on whether this exchange happens on f4, I will castle one way or the other?
That's a great question. When I say or, it's actually more of a matter of like it's honestly completely up to you.
Okay.
You can play the position, the ensuing position, with short castles or long castles. And I know that's like, well, that's why wouldn't I stick to one way? Because in chess, consistency is super important. But you might find that you like putting your king this way and just going crazy on the side of the board.
Okay.
But if you castle the same side as your opponent, it's harder. It's harder to attack on the same flank because
Okay.
So
in the event that this pawn is taken, I immediately take back with the bishop. If it's not,
let's say I go here, for example. What
yeah,
do you think you should do here?
probably move the knight out.
Okay, perfect. See, you didn't forget about that. Like that's how I know your continuity is absolutely right. Like you don't need to get distracted with this, because you know that if this happens, we have this.
Right.
So
I mean, I guess this is a good time to, so one principle that I don't think that it's necessarily been, I mean, that I've picked up on, I guess, is I tend, if there's a possibility to create a trade or wait for a trade earlier in the game, I'll usually opt to put one of my pieces on a better square, knowing that I can always that the piece is defended and I can trade later or now. Rather than choosing to trade, I'll wait and develop a piece.
okay, sure. So what you're saying is you're not rushing into trades for the sake of simplifying the position.
Yes, certainly not early anyway.
Right. Yeah, that's good because actually folks play the complete opposite way. Like a lot of people like to trade like 5, 6 pieces immediately, and you probably have played against folks like that who
Yeah.
and now the thing is when that is happening, when it's very clear that someone is trying to do something so belligerently, chess is not the kind of game where you go, "Oh, I'm not going to let him do that." Because what you described in that sentence is an emotion, and that has no that sentence does not make any sense on the board. Because on the board, the best move and the best plan is always the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same conceptually. You can't just go, "I don't want that to happen."
Right.
So sometimes, very early on, trading a bishop for a knight, not good. Just generally speaking. 7, 8 times out of 10. Why? You know there's imbalance, right, between bishops and knights.
So I think in the end game, the bishops are better.
Yes, and in the middle game.
Okay.
Yeah, and so conceptually speaking, if I challenge you, do you think that a person with 2 bishops versus bishop and knight wants to open the position or close it or doesn't matter?
Well, with 2 bishops, I mean, I guess I've been in situations where with 2 bishops, I can start to really harass the king over to one side of the board, maybe
Mm-hmm.
for as part of some broader plan. So it seems if I had the 2 bishops, I would want open or close. I guess I don't know. I guess maybe more open because the bishops would have long diagonals on which to operate.
Yes, exactly. So that's sort of how you go a little bit deeper into that concept. Like, for
Mm,
example, if your opponent played the move bishop g4 in this position,
yep.
the whole opening phase is not just about developing your pieces and your pieces only. I mean, it's also still a dialogue between your pieces and theirs. So in this position, what I would do is I would say, okay, what do you do if I just attack your bishop?
Right.
And if they hang around, this bishop is very suspiciously placed.
Yeah, I mean, in this, I've had this situation on the side of the board often, and usually I'll just keep pushing
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Perfect. And then if they go here, this is actually very common in the Vienna.
Ah, right. Usually in the openings I'm playing, I'm not getting this third push. They're usually back to a space that is like inaccessible for me, or at least this pawn would be under. It would be in a space where it could be taken.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's different in this opening.
Yes, exactly. Playing this like system with this expansion on the king side, you will trap that bishop. It will happen.
Mm,
And well, because folks like they go here, but they don't really think it through. They kind of stop at, okay, I'm just pinning this knight. Sorry, they stop at I'm pinning the knight, and you go okay. And if they take it, I hope we're on the same page about what you're taking back with.
Well, so let me think. I mean, I guess if I take with the pawn, I've got the open G file for the rook. But if I castle, then it's actually the king that's exposed, right? So maybe that's not so good.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's better to take with the queen in this position, because if you take with the pawn, um, I honestly can't add anything to what you said. Yes.
And double pawns, I guess, is unless there's a good reason for it, I want to avoid it.
Okay, so this is very commonly kind of stated. I'm not so sure how badly you need to kind of implement that concept, I would say.
Okay.
Because let's put it this way. Doubled pawns which are isolated and could be targets, yes. Doubled pawns which are supporting the center, which are well protected, not quite the same, but
Okay.
everything else, yes, everything else is 100% right.
All right.
So queen would be, yes. Okay, now I play this. Let's test your tactical vision. What's the best square for the queen to go?
Well, Black's G pawn as of right now is undefended. So G3, I would be immediately attacking that pawn, and I guess potentially forcing Black to have to react to that. Where else? I mean, F2 would put the queen with some. I mean, if that knight eventually moves, the queen would potentially have room to do something. And then maybe, I guess I would try to avoid E3, even though the pawn is there. I try to maybe avoid lining up the queen and the king. So yeah, I mean, I guess if this were me playing, I would probably go for G3.
Okay. So this is where I'm going to. Have you heard in any of my videos me say checks, captures, and attacks?
Checks, captures, and attacks. Yes. Okay.
So and just chess thought process in general. So obviously when that knight pops in, the first thing you do, a move is made, is you go, what does my opponent want? It's not about you. It's actually, first and foremost, it's about them.
Yep.
So when you see the queen is under attack.
Right.
And so you go, I gotta move my queen. Well, if I go here, I'm attacking this pawn. Yep. Yes, but you didn't finish that first thought. There's something else.
I'm gonna get forked on C2 if I do that.
Exactly. So so that when you finish that thought process, it becomes a lot easier to go, well, what do I have to do? I gotta.
So I guess it would be F2 or even D1, right?
Yes. And so they're both fine, but F2 is a little bit better. Why?
Well, I'm not totally undeveloping the queen.
Okay, perfect. Also, we can call this not an attack. I like to call this just vision. So the queen has vision on the knight, and if anything goes wrong, you'll take it.
Yeah.
And, you can even, like, this move, next move, is adding an attack.
Yep.
So, yes, bishop e3 would attack the knight. No, this is a great move. Now let's say I will go here. Let's play through this. Maybe I'll leave you off with castling. So you finish your development, and now I'll play a move like a6. So let's play a little bit. So
okay, and then at some point, will we back up and review the standard moves that I should be? Okay, yeah, good.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, I mean, at this point, I might be thinking something like this. Would maybe be a move I would think of, or I might push the B pawn, maybe. I mean, this is usually actually where, if I have an opening plan, this is where it becomes pretty ambiguous for me, where I'm not really sure like how I should structure the plan going forward.
So B3 and bishop E3 are both fantastic moves, because I guess B3. I'm starting to do some calculations because I get what you're saying. B3 bishop B2. So B3 tactically would not work. I just want to show this. I spoke too soon. I was just focusing on your development. But B3, what is wrong with B3? Can you?
What is wrong with B3?
I know it looks like crazy that could be. So checks, captures, attacks for yourself is an easy way to solve puzzles. Now add that to your opponent. If you play B3, he can't check you. Well, he can, but both moves lose a knight.
Right.
Both moves lose a knight. He can take this, and what does that lose?
That loses that. Yeah, the other knight. Yeah.
Exactly. I guess he can take everything else which is guarded. So then attacks. How does he attack you in this position safely?
One
of your pieces.
I'm actually not sure.
Perfect. That's good. Because if you knew everything, then chess would be very simple. So it's better not to know.
I mean, I'm thinking, so with this knight, you're saying?
No, no, no. With anything. So
Oh,
when
I
you play
see.
this move, yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm still not sure how that move puts me in a position to be attacked.
So I guess you can go piece by piece. Now, pawns, I wouldn't, like, you don't need to go, oh, he can attack one of my pawns or something, because there's no pawn in the center of the board that can be attacked at the moment.
Yep.
This is all well guarded. Your pieces, you need to see if there's any way he can put one of your pieces in danger. And so this is the move.
Okay. Yep.
And now your only safe square with the bishop is here.
Yep.
And I just hope you understand, when I say safe, I mean that, oops, sorry, I mean that that's a fair trade.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So, but then there's this.
Mm,
And your bishop is dead.
right.
So it's crazy that that can happen that fast. And now
Yep.
white is just down a piece. I mean, we you know, there's not much you can do here. So it's crazy that a move like b3, but conceptually speaking, do you see why your bishop got trapped?
Conceptually speaking,
Let's put it like, oh no, I guess blue is not the right color. Let's.
well, I mean, that pawn structure limits the escape squares for the bishop.
Yes, that's, yeah, exactly. So it's the fact that, you know, 3 light squared pawns behind a light squared bishop,
Right.
they're shoving him off a cliff and saying jump into the lake, and so this bishop has to hang out here. Whereas at least here, you know, there's an escape square for the bishop to always kind of drop back to, and
Right.
this trade is fine. For the future, if you ever want a getaway square for a bishop on one of these diagonals, like a3 is always very useful.
Mm,
And then you can slide back, and then from there, you'll have the same kind of pressure.
makes sense.
Bishop e3, the move that you suggested, excellent move. Because it creates an attack on my knight, right? You are literally threatening to take this piece.
Yep.
So let me go here.
Okay. I guess I'd maybe be thinking about pushing my f pawn to f5.
Okay. Taking some space on this side of the board.
Yeah, and you know, maybe opening up some space for the bishop, and the pawn is protected by this pawn, and you know, there's kind of like some action happening. So I mean, you know, in these situations, I don't necessarily have a clear idea of what my eventual attack would be, but it just sort of seems like maybe I have something going here that I could develop.
So f5, what is the difference between these two moves? Taking the pawn and pushing it. Let's say you take it, optically speaking.
Well, I'm opening space if I
Mhm.
take, whereas I'm kind of keeping things closed in if I just push.
Yeah, it's more like the f file is opening up in your favor. But at the same time, when this happens, you know, you do kind of allow the queen to have vision, rather than, that's not a threat, it's now taking part in the game on the d file.
Yes.
Okay, yes, very good. I mean, taking or pushing are both kind of, they're both kind of equally, how should I say, annoying for black.
Yep.
Because they both take space, they both open up the position. I think between the two of them, this trade is a little bit better.
Oh, okay.
Because you at least now have, you know, pressure here. So in terms of, you have a middle game position, and it's like, what do I do next? So obviously you're always looking at attacking something, capturing something. Tactics should always be kind of whirring in the back of your head. Let's say you do play this move, queen to g3.
Yep.
You're eyeing this, you have vision on this pawn. You're like, okay, I'm going to go here. Have you ever seen this kind of checkmate pattern where you have this and then...
Yeah, so very typically in this situation, I would try to play here, you know, given that the pawn is pinned. And then usually what ends up happening, well, I guess in this position, I'd have to look at it, but sometimes if it's very dire for my opponent, this pawn comes forward and I'll end up taking the rook. And, you know, there's some, you know, trade that happens on that square that's to my advantage.
Yes, exactly. So when you start looking at all this stuff, you have to not forget what your queen was doing on that home square. And so that's kind of like the lesson in and of itself, is that you gotta go, okay, I want to go here, and then I want to go here, and then I want to go here. Yeah, but what happens when this happens again?
Right.
And
Right,
so it's
right,
like, well,
right,
that doesn't matter because I have this move. You're not fully wrong if you think this way.
right.
But again, the thought process there is, if he takes my rook, then it's mate.
Yep.
Is that thought process is correct? That is a correct thought process, but there's something amiss. We're assuming that the rook will be captured, and that's not going to happen. So that's how you have to think in chess. If you have 4 ideas, 3 work, 1 doesn't, you can't play the idea, the original idea. Because if the opponent finds the one move that stops your whole plan, it doesn't matter that there was 3 good plans. Like, if that makes sense.
Okay, so but in this particular situation, are
Mhm.
you saying I shouldn't be worried about the rook on a1 because if there is not a defense here, then it's mate?
Yes. So that's exactly right. My next question was going to be, is there a defense?
For black.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, it's this, right?
So g6 is kind of like the last resort, because then you're going to lose your rook.
Mm-hmm.
That is usually what has to happen if you have no other way of defending.
Maybe here?
Perfect. So that move both defends and attacks.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
actually, this has happened to me before, yeah.
right. And that move sucks for you, because
Yep.
it's like, oh, okay. And then, if you go here, now can we take this rook?
Yeah,
Right, because if you take the knight, let's not forget that this bishop is now under attack.
right.
So because the position will change a little bit. That used to not be the case.
Yep.
And yeah, that's I mean, that's kind of a little bit about plan making.
So one idea that in a position like this I've had before would be thinking about if I play here,
What
and
does that
then
trade do?
takes here,
Yep.
and then this puts pressure this way, and the queen can't take because this is defended. So that would be something I would think about. I don't know if it would actually work.
So knight d5 as an idea is exactly where I was going. It's like, if you don't have a direct attacking plan, you don't have a weakness that you can target, what trades in the position are beneficial to you?
Yes.
And why? So knight d5 is the best move. It's the best move in the position.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
Wow. I'm shocked that would be my go-to. That's
yes.
Well, I mean, and also in thinking about, this entire idea, this also would get the knight away from being able to end up defending here.
There you go. Yep. So you see, you have the ability, I think it's also from experience, because you've played a lot of games, you have the ability to see how a piece ties together, 2 parts of the position, which is,
Yes.
yeah. And so knight d5 is excellent. Now, if I take, you already said that you would be taking with the bishop. I'll let you have it, because I feel as though that was very well done. Let's say with the black pieces here, I play the move queen d7. So I defend this.
Yep.
That's hanging, right?
Yes.
Should you take it?
My instinct without calculating it is no.
Okay, why?
Well, so if I take it and then the rook takes back,
Okay.
and then I take here and the king moves away,
Mm-hmm.
then what? I don't know that it. Am I coming out ahead? I mean, I guess I'm coming out ahead in a literal sense.
When you say literal sense, that means up material, right?
I'm up material, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'm actually ending the game, and maybe I'm getting my pieces out of position for some future defense. I don't know.
So the way a chess, like for example, myself, I'm looking at this position. I see bishop f7. That's a free pawn, is as far as I'm concerned, because I'm even skipping over the fact that the rook will take. Because if the rook takes, then the final position with the king here, and it's your move,
you're still better off.
Right. So the way you evaluate a position, I mean, the easiest way to think about this is, am I up material at the end of my idea? In this case, you are. You have a rook and a pawn for a bishop, which is a huge advantage. That's +4.
Yep.
Which is, that's almost like the game is over on the spot, basically.
Right. Well, if I were better, I've lost +4 more times than I can imagine.
I know, but see, that's one of those like extra add-ons, right? When we calculate, it's like, I'm not sure I can win this. Who the hell cares? You have to play it. It's the best move. So you have to play the move bishop takes f7. And so you say, okay, am I +4? Yes. If not, that's when the position gets a little bit more confusing. If it's like, I'm +1, but is my queen overextended? Am I going to get my
Right.
queen trapped? So that kind of leads me to this, like if king h8. So I see someone in my
That
chat.
was going to be my next question. So,
Mhm.
so now essentially I either need to move the queen uh, in order to defend the bishop with something worth less than the queen,
Right.
or I need to, I don't know, I mean, attack the queen, but I can't really do that. So I'm not sure.
Right, so you're already starting to look, okay, I'm pinned, I can't move my bishop. Are you in danger?
Not really, no.
Yeah, and even if it was black's move, I don't think black can do anything, because you're defending this way too much.
Right.
You have two, you have two defenders on this position. So
Yep.
so you're not in danger. And you're up a pawn. You can't move for just a moment here. So, what would be next? You don't need to go bishop e6 because you can calculate, well, if he takes my queen, I take his queen, but he's not going to do that. He's going to take the bishop.
Right.
And so, we don't have anything there. So,
Yep.
what are you thinking here? Let's start thinking in terms of 2 or 3 different ideas, candidate moves.
Okay, so I would look at c3, but then I still have the move of the knight coming to c2 and then attacking the rook on a1, and then I've got to defend. Oh no, actually I could take it with my queen,
Right.
and the bishop is still defended by the rook.
Okay, perfect. So does that mean you play c3, by the way?
Well, I would think about other moves first.
Exactly. So just because you found, your thought was, okay, yeah, he got knight c2, but I just take, okay, great, c3 is the best move in the position.
Right.
No, because then you could have missed something completely different, right? So,
Yep.
so, okay, c3, first of all, if not knight c2, what is he going to play?
If not knight c2, if not knight c2, I'm not sure.
He's got to go backwards.
Yeah, I guess maybe knight c6 or knight b5.
Yeah, knight b5, knight c6, and actually this one you can make your life a lot simpler. Then you can just take, and then you would have the difference being that at least you're winning a knight for whatever it is that you were trying to do over here.
Right.
So c3 is a great move. You have other moves, but they're much more mysterious. For example, you can probably play a move like this to just bring a rook. You can play a move like queen d2 as well, which gets out of this pin.
Yes.
So queen d2 is probably the most natural, and it keeps this guarded. So that might be the move that gives you the least headache.
Right.
Just queen d2 and gets out of the way. Let's say you play c3 and I go here. Okay, so with these two moves, what has changed in the position?
The center is much more open.
Center's much more open, and in particular, what is attacking what now?
Now, what is attacking what? Now well, potentially there's this.
Okay, but remember, the opponent just moved, so before you even think for yourself, look at what they're attacking now.
This pawn.
Exactly, that's what changed. Your pawn move weakened the next pawn. And so that's actually the threat. Because if you play bishop c5, by the way, calculate that for a second. So bishop c5, your opponent will play what?
Well, I mean, I guess would they take this?
Let's do that first. Yep.
Yeah. Then I take with the queen.
And what's changed? What's changed now after those bishops left the board?
Well, the pawn on d3 remains undefended.
Correct. And there's something else hidden. Always do like a little piece scan of is your bishop on f7.
Now the queen has access to that square.
Yes.
The black queen, yeah.
Yes, and bishop c5 would actually tragically result in the loss of the bishop, because that transformation added the queen. Yeah, and so from a distance, that's hard to see as you're moving up the ranks, the fact that movement, added that. However, it's very easy for your opponent. They don't have a big job. They just take the bishop and take the other bishop.
Yeah.
And that's where we make mistakes. We see things from the distance, and
Right.
they're kind of incorrectly, incorrectly. So that just means that this is a bad move, but we didn't play it. That was just an idea.
Right.
So we should keep this guarded. How do we do that?
Well, I mean, I could look at pushing that pawn.
Okay,
no, that's a terrible idea because my opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces defending
Yes.
that square. Yeah,
Okay.
so I don't want to do that.
Exactly. But it was an idea. Just because the idea doesn't work doesn't mean, like, the player is like a moron. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, okay, it might be a good move in another position.
Sure.
So how else?
I mean, I guess now I would think about bringing one of my rooks, probably the rook on A, in line with the queen.
Yeah, I think rook d1 is a perfectly reasonable move. Rook d1 defends this pawn. But there is something very evil here, which I will just show for instructive value.
Yep.
That bishop that you have pinned to your queen. How can your opponent add an attacker to it right now?
Right now, let's see. Oh, well, no, I'm not even sure, actually. Add an attacker to that. Oh, moving the knight back to d8.
Yeah, and that really sucks. Like, I mean, that just sucks.
Yep.
And there's nothing you can do because you need to invert these pieces. Like, the rook should be before the queen.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, knight d8 is just a backwards knight move that wins material is the hardest tactic. You'll hear this a lot. So that's actually the reason rook d1 is bad. But, like, how can you tell that this is bad because of this? That it just has to do with the focus on the focal point of the position, which is this.
Yep.
At the moment. And so that is why, yeah, you should play a move like, queen to e2, for example, because that sidesteps this.
Yes.
And the way kind of I'm trying to intertwine more general things and kind of the general thought process to the game, because the truth of the matter is we have this position in front of us now, but you will never have this position ever again. Right. Probably. That's how chess works. Mm-hmm. So you can't sit here and go, okay, I'm going to memorize, like...
right, of course.
Yeah, it's more like, for the future, is this a good move? Yes. If you can find the follow-up to maintaining your pin here and getting out of the way. Is this a good move? Yes. I was most impressed with the fact that you found knight d5. I mean, that was, like, that was amazing, because it shows you understand the difference between this trade and a trade like this, which this accomplishes nothing for your position. Right. It just gets rid of, your bishop. Yeah. Exactly. So that's fantastic. And I mean, we can sort of pause here, and the way you kind of learn an opening and then practice the opening is you get the setup down a few times and you go and play. And you go scan how it's going. You go, am I playing it right? Am I making the transition from the opening to the middle game correctly? Or, hey, I lost in 7 moves. Like, you taught me some shit. Like,
well, so on that note, can we go back to the beginning just so we can talk through that? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. So the goal for my second move is this. And I do that only if I am responding to e5 or in a number of different scenarios.
So exactly. So against e4, e5 primarily. But you can play this move against Sicilian as well. Okay. So knight c3, and we'll add that layer. But for now, let's focus on this one.
Okay. So at this point, knight to c3.
Exactly, knight to c3. Now, last time we looked at this knight, but we can also look at the bishop out. Okay.
Do I play my bishop out in this case?
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Your game plan is going to be this kind of thing. Yep. So d3, f4, knight f3.
And then I guess the question is situations that would interrupt it.
Exactly. So okay, first and foremost, this crap.
Okay. So I guess, I mean, is this what I'm looking to do here?
Yeah, so g3 is fine because this can't be taken.
Right.
That can't be taken. Probably the best move is to guard with the queen,
Oh, okay.
and but it's very like I'll say that G3 is completely fine as long as you understand that when you put something on this square, it will be a little more vulnerable.
Yes.
So your queen guards, but you should be a little bit careful. You might consider even long castling.
Okay.
To get getting the king. I don't want to play a committal pawn move, something like this,
Got it.
followed by this, the knight out, the bishop out, and notice how last time I told you it's about moving this f pawn forward.
Yeah.
Just because you can't get it doesn't mean the game is over. You just still follow basic developing principles.
So that would be this queen move would be sort of like an exception move where I would change my plan.
Yeah, if your opponent just goes for something ridiculous. Let me just play a natural developing move.
Yeah, so then at this point I would play here.
Perfect. Yes. I will play d6.
Okay.
So say I play knight c6.
Now I bring my knight out.
Bring your knight out, exactly. Play castles.
At this point, would I castle?
So here's the thing.
Oh, right, I can't castle right now. Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, so this is common to this position, right?
Yes, it's actually not the end of the world. But this is kind of Black's most challenging approach.
Okay.
Black does not let you get exactly what you want.
Is this Black playing perfectly in defense of the Vienna?
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's kind of why I've added this element, is that now you don't just get to go here and then destroy.
Yep.
The best thing to do for you is to block out this bishop and open up the bishop coming to g5.
Okay. So at this point I would play f5, yeah.
Yes, exactly. f5 is the best move.
Okay.
There's no way to strike back in the center because you have that completely shut down. I don't want you to panic if you see this, so this kind of idea.
Yeah.
Because actually, if you just move your queen first.
Now, this is preferable to this?
Yeah, because then you would block your bishop.
Okay. Oh, right there. Okay, fair. Yeah.
Exactly. So queen like this. If I jump in here with a knight, all that's doing is attacking a rook. So that
I move the rook, and I still eventually could castle over here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've already started making progress on this side of the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm showing you this because like if you were a complete beginner, I wouldn't do this because I would say like, okay, I need him to castle his king early, otherwise bad things are gonna happen. But king in the center is fine as long as you have control of the position.
Yep.
And you do, because there's only 3 pieces. I will go one more step to show you. What if I check you?
I mean, I guess so I guess these are my 3 options, right? Or I guess I could take this as well, and then I'm trading my queen for a bishop and a knight, which seems like that's not really a good move.
Yeah, no, we want to move the king for sure.
So I guess my instinct would be, so if I move here, I'm potentially connecting the rooks, except I'm blocking the bishop on this side. Eventually, I guess I could go over here. If I move the king over to d1, then I'm allowing the bishop to develop sometime soon, which seems preferable, maybe.
Yes, and if you go, well, the thing is, as far as the bishop developing, the king moving to either of those 2 squares is equivalent.
Okay.
But I think long term, if your king stands right here, it's not going to get to a side. It's still in the center. And so if you go to f1, when you kick this knight out, it can just hang out right there.
Okay.
And it's pretty safe. Now both of them are actually okay, but more than anything else, what I'm kind of trying to show here is that we're breaking one of maybe the rules that you have learned early on, which is you got to castle, you gotta get the king safe, and we're adding a little bit of opening flair, so allowing our opponent to overextend into our position, but understanding that it's not actually any danger to us. It's just 2 random pieces, and our king is completely safe.
So one question here, just because I have this actually, if we're here,
Sure.
I very often will. Sometimes I'll just say, "Let me just attack the queen." Oh, it's not actually my turn right now. Okay, so let me go back. So attack the queen, knowing that this is coming, and then I just move back. Is there any real sense to doing that?
Well, that move at the moment is impossible. So bishop g5 is a fantastic move.
Oh, okay.
So you're a genius. Yeah,
Okay, this is
because
not normally the scenario I face, but this scenario where my bishop is defended by my knight in this position, and the queen can be easily defended by moving. Is this a wasted move for me?
so the way you can think about that is most likely yes, it is
Okay.
like a finesse that doesn't have to happen. However, sometimes it's very good. And so the way you got to think about that is, what does them making that, like, let's say this move is possible, what does them doing f6 do to the position? At an elementary level, you say, does that move like blunder a bunch of pieces?
Right.
If the answer is no, like, let's say that move was legal.
Yep.
Say, okay, well then I can like maybe move my bishop here and then I cover that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be very smart.
Interesting.
It would be a tempo winning move. You would force your opponent to react to that move, and then you would retreat. Sometimes in chess, moves like this win the game. A move that, you force a move out of your opponent and then retreat. But doing it for the sake of doing it, usually bad, unless you see exactly like what is next.
Okay.
I would say, yeah.
Got it. I mean, sometimes this type of thing can be used to potentially move two pawns out of place, which may be to my advantage. But I guess you're saying, unless there's a real specific way that I know it's to my advantage, it's not really worth it.
Yeah, because again, if you apply the same logic, it's like, okay, well, if they do that, then great, but what if they don't?
Right.
And then if they do it, fantastic. But if they don't, then it might actually end up being, yeah, a waste of a move.
Okay.
Now it's kind of more my job, I feel like, in this, in these streams, to give you multiple ideas and things to think about,
Yes.
rather than, okay, David, here's an opening and you must play this for the remainder of your life and the tournament. Because first of all, by the way, like, let's put it this way, if the show goes on and you play this opening, people are going to start seeing that.
Yes.
And they will start training, and it's good to have options.
Right.
So another way to play this, if you're maybe, okay, find that you're a little uncomfortable opening up your king, is way back here to put the bishop in fianchetto style, King's Indian style.
Okay.
And prepare the f4 move a little bit more slowly. So I'll show you what that looks like. So something like this. So g3, bishop c5, like this. And then preparing this move by moving this and this.
Right.
And then that.
So that's more reminiscent of just a King's Indian Open.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different than King's Indian, because in King's Indian, you wait a very long time to actually play the e4 move.
Right.
So in a perfect world, what this looks like is something like this, where you actually castle. You move very far along in this whole process. You actually even move your king this way because you're out of the pin.
Mm.
And then something like this. So you got this protected, and then and only then do you start, doing this kind of a thing.
Okay.
And this expansion. And it's kind of up to you. Like, maybe you play one of them, but you don't like having an open king. So you would play this one. The good thing about this setup is you can play like this against the Sicilian also.
Okay.
So let's just play through that. I mean, I just showed it to you. So I'll play with the black pieces. Go for that setup with the bishop here. How would you?
Oh, okay.
Right. So in the Sicilian, it's not great to put the bishop on c4. Do you have any idea why?
No, but I'm wondering if it has to do maybe with these pawns eventually coming forward.
Yes, it's the fact that the opponent never moved the e-pawn, and so they can just go like this.
Right.
So a lot of people don't realize this. A lot of people actually get asked this a lot. This thing, bishop c4, has a name, and different chess sites will pop the name up in the top right, and they'll go, "Do you know the bibbity boopity thing?" And I'm like, "I don't know what that is." So it turns out that there's a name to this move. And they'll say, well, I play this, and I say, well, it's not great, because then they can just go here.
Right.
And then the chat will say, well, they never do that. And that's the age-old question. It's like, should you play something if it's bad, but no one plays the right way? I don't know. I don't know where you draw the line, but
so that would be a modification where if I see that black is playing a Sicilian, instead of I would opt for the fianchetto.
exactly. And you could do this against the king's pawn, but if maybe you say, okay, against d4a5, I'm always putting my bishop here because it's more aggressive.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And you would set up, like we can play through this. Let's say I play like e6.
Okay.
2, knight out.
So now I would play here?
You actually can. You can play that right away, and then you wouldn't even have to do this move.
Oh, okay. Oh, so in this setup, this is a possibility first. Yeah.
Yes. When the bishop is out in the king's pawn position, because obviously now we can't do that in the Sicilian.
Yeah.
You might have difficulty playing this move and then not having the right to castle. So as we've seen already in different versions of this opening, you might just have to go long.
Right.
You're not going to be able to castle short. But yes, knight e2 is possible. You want to play f4? Like, totally. Let's go with this. So
okay,
I'll play e6.
Okay. Oh, so I guess now I would play the knight.
You can play the knight, and also from moving the f pawn early that you can put the knight behind the pawn.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting. Yeah, I guess I didn't necessarily think it was better in this position to do that, but you think it would be?
It's your call. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do either. So if you play the pawns out like this,
yeah,
then knight f3 is totally okay.
So sometimes in these positions, I end up just struggling to do anything with this bishop, and it's almost like a dead piece sometimes. And very often, like if something like this were to happen, I end up having a situation where, other than undeveloping, my only move is basically just to leave it attacked by this bishop.
Yes, and I'm sure you've actually also seen that from the King's Indian on the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's a long-term piece that's going to stand on that square. Like, you're going to have to try to open the position.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why, I've been pushing it toward this, but it's hard to maximize the piece when it stands on g2. So there's pros and cons. This is more solid for your king, whereas this is a little bit more, more active for the bishop, but your king has potential weaknesses. Actually, like I told you before the show, like I have, chats open, somebody saying, let you play a game out. What's going to happen is you're going to play this too early and your king is going to get too weak. Well, that's how you learn an opening. You've got to play it and you got to go, okay, this game I did something stupid and I need to, you're going to get into some sort of trouble.
Yeah.
So, but that's how you have to play through things. Let's also just give you a couple of things with the pawn coming here, whether immediately or, the French and the Caro-Kann. How much experience do you have playing against all of these openings with like the pawn coming to d5?
I mean, so the d5 pawn is what I have the most experience with. I certainly, I've dealt with this. I just don't have any strategy, so it doesn't stick in my mind as something, that I know what I even play. I sort of am like going to figure it out as I go along situation.
Okay, got it. So essentially, these two want to push, the French and the Caro-Kann. They want to push the pawn here and then have a pawn supporting, obviously. Whereas this guy is saying, I watched the John Bartholomew video, and so now I know what I'm doing. So you bring the queen out, and then actually oftentimes, as you said, the queen goes all the way to the side or all the way back.
Yep.
And then easy development after that. So what I recommend against this is actually, rather than chase the queen right away, just get your king castled.
Oh, okay.
So knight f3.
Yep.
And then bishop e2. And just do this.
Okay. Because
people freak out unless their queen, if their queen doesn't get attacked, they'll actually just do something weird and malfunction. So for example, knight f6. Go ahead. So bishop e2. Same, I just develop. And then my goal here is, before you put this knight here, the knight would be a lot more powerful in the center of the board with two pawns there.
Right.
So that's what I like to do against the Scandinavian. I'll put
now,
two pawns.
Would you chase the queen away right away?
So I like to veil this threat by playing something like d4 first,
Oh, okay.
because that still keeps this on the board.
Right.
And in the future, if they play inaccurately, like let's say, I don't know, they something like this, like they don't. Now you have this and that,
Right.
and there you go. So you have the ability to veil the c4 push and then push the d pawn forward, and now you're, attacking straight down the middle of the board.
Makes sense. Okay, so the big change for me is that typically
You attack the queen.
I attack the queen.
Yes.
Yeah. So instead here, the idea is I'm playing here, 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 and then castling.
Yes, exactly. You're not
Okay.
actually playing into into the attack of the queen. You're just going to get developed, and then 2 pawns in the center.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Against the others like this, well, it's generally good practice to put 2 pawns in the center of the board.
If it's possible without losing one of them, you put 2 pawns in the center.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you don't need to go for this whole setup thing. We only do that against those two.
Okay.
So king's pawn and Sicilian, so I would put 2 pawns in the center. Play d4, and then on d5, what's called like a placeholder. So I'll just show this to you as a for now, and then get some more games under your belt, and we'll kind of start adding on, because I don't want to throw heaps and heaps of information. Just take the pawn.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Typically in this position, I've just been pushing this pawn forward. But again, I don't really have a strategy. It's just like I'm kind of, figuring it out.
Yes, exactly. So that is a perfectly challenging weapon. For now, though, a French defense player, you have to understand, when you play this and you're saying I'm figuring it out, they've done some study.
Ah, right. They
So
know exactly what to do.
They're going to go here, and you're like, okay, I guess I should defend my center. And they're like, all right, perfect. That's chapter 3 of my course. Boom. And you're like, et cetera, et cetera. So
Right.
the easiest thing, just for now, let's trade.
Yep.
And let's just get castled. So here, bishop, castle.
Okay. Now, in this position, is there ever any point to this check?
Aha, no.
Okay, good.
Yes, no. Well, that was 2 confusing answers back to back, but the answer is no. The only benefit to a straight down check like this is if you develop your pieces and castle and they don't. So something like, I don't know, this.
Mm-hmm.
The rook check is very strong.
Okay. Okay.
The queen check is not, because the queens can just get traded.
Right.
This is very different. And what you're doing now is you're actually starting to punish them for being lazy in the opening. So let's say they play bishop e6. You can already go after this bishop. How?
Like this?
Bishop f5 is one way. What's another way?
Another way would be here.
Yes, perfect. Which of those do you think is better?
Maybe with the knight.
Okay, now tell me why.
Well, because I'm forcing, if I do take here, I'm attacking the queen, which means essentially this move is almost guaranteed to happen. I guess I can plan around it better than if I leave other options. I don't know.
No, that's I think that's the best explanation, and also we can also think about it from the perspective of the endgame, is that your bishop
right. Okay.
will just be a long range piece. Bishop f5 is also a very reasonable move.
Okay.
And the threat is to just win the pawn. So
yeah.
Bishop takes and so on. So
yep.
Yes, queen check, not quite, but
okay.
this rook check, yes, absolutely.
Got it.
It is